When I opened the box containing his old letters, I found a note addressed to a woman who shared my last name. It was just an ordinary shoebox that had once held the expensive Italian loafers Mark bought 3 years ago after his promotion. It smelled of dust, old cardboard, and the faint, lingering trace of his cologne, sandalwood and cold steel. I had been looking for insurance papers because Mark, as usual, was too busy to deal with petty domestic nonsense, but instead of boring policies, my fingers grazed a stack of envelopes tied with twine. The top one was torn. There was no stamp, only a name scrawled in his neat, angular handwriting, to Chloe Davis. That was my maiden name. But my name is Sarah. Chloe is my younger sister. A ball of ice formed instantly in my chest, heavy and jagged, making it impossible to draw a breath. I knew I shouldn't read it, knew that the marriage we had built over 7 years should be founded on trust, but my hands were trembling, not from conscience, but from the premonition of disaster. I pulled out the sheet. There was no date. The text was short, just 3 sentences. She's starting to guess, but she has no proof. Keep playing on her pity. We're almost there. The paper was thick and expensive, the kind used for wills or death sentences, and it felt like it burned my fingertips. I shoved the note into the pocket of my robe the moment I heard the key turn in the lock. That sound always triggered a dual response in me, relief that I wasn't alone in this massive apartment with its high ceilings, and a vague, sticky anxiety I could never quite explain. Mark walked in, filling the entire space with his presence as he always did. He tossed his keys onto the console table, a sharp, ringing clash of metal against marble that made me flinch involuntarily. He looked impeccable, a perfectly pressed shirt, not a trace of fatigue on his face, just that piercing, scanning gaze he bestowed upon me every evening. "You look pale, Sarah," he said instead of a greeting, walking over to kiss my temple. His lips were dry and cold. I caught the scent of the outdoors and someone else's perfume, or was I just imagining it? Lately, I had stopped trusting my own senses because Mark constantly told me I was too sensitive, that I was making things up, that I needed more rest and needed to take the vitamins he brought me. "Just a headache," I lied, trying to keep my voice steady. He smiled, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. "Again? Maybe we should up the dosage? I'm taking care of you, darling, but you're not helping me heal you." Over dinner, I watched him as if seeing him for the first time. He cut his steak with surgical precision, separating even, juice-dripping pieces and placing them in his mouth, chewing thoroughly. We talked about renovations at the lake house, his new deal, the weather, everything except the piece of paper burning a hole through the fabric of my robe against my thigh. Chloe, my sister, whom I had been inseparable from in childhood but had drifted apart from in recent years. Chloe, who was always broke, who changed jobs like gloves, and who always looked at my life with a hidden, bitter envy. Mark had always said she was a bad influence, that she was toxic, that I should limit contact. Brick by brick, he had methodically built a wall between us, and I believed him because he was my husband, my rock. And now it turns out they were writing to each other. We're almost there. Where was there? I looked at his hands, the strong, manicured hands of a pianist or a strangler, and tried to understand exactly when I had transformed from a beloved woman into the object of some game. "You're not listening," his voice sliced through my thoughts like a scalpel. "I asked if your sister called you today. She asked for money last week." I turned her down. "I hope you didn't do anything stupid." Lying came surprisingly easy to me, as if I'd been practicing for years. "No, we didn't speak," I answered, staring straight into his plate, where nothing remained but a small pool of blood from the meat. A hot wave of rage mixed with nausea rose inside me. I remembered all those moments when I felt like I was losing my mind. Missing items that would later appear in plain sight. Messages I had allegedly sent but had no memory of writing. Strange charges on my card that Mark explained away as bank glitches or my own forgetfulness. You have memory issues, Sarah, it runs in the family, just look at your mother, he would say with a sympathetic look as he poured me more water. Now the puzzle was coming together into a hideous picture. Chloe was part of it. Keep playing on her pity. She would call me, crying, talking about debts and heartbreak, emotionally draining me, making me feel guilty for my well-being. And I, like a fool, transferred money to her, hiding it from Mark, creating the exact situation where he could accuse me of being irresponsible and unstable. Had they conspired together? But for what? I didn't sleep that night. I lay there listening to Mark's steady breathing, feeling like a bomb disposal technician in the middle of a minefield. I needed the truth, but one wrong move could blow up my life. When he left for work, I didn't take the vitamins he had left on the nightstand, 2 white capsules that always made me drowsy and turned my thoughts into sludge. I hid them under the mattress. The first thing I did was call the bank. Not the one where we held our joint account, but the one holding my grandmother's inheritance, the only thing that legally belonged solely to me. An apartment downtown and a savings account. The operator took a long time verifying my data, asking security questions, and with every passing second, my pulse quickened. I'm sorry, Mrs. Miller, but an application for a general power of attorney in your husband's name was filed 3 days ago. Were you personally present at the notary? The young woman's voice was polite but guarded. I slid down the wall onto the cold parquet floor. I hadn't been anywhere. I had been sitting at home, drugged on pills, while they laid the groundwork to take everything from me. I drove to Chloe's. She lived in a rented apartment on the outskirts, in a neighborhood where the wind chased trash bags around the courtyards and the hallway walls were covered in graffiti. I didn't warn her I was coming. When she opened the door, she was wearing a stretched-out t-shirt, and dark circles lay under her eyes, but something in her gaze had changed. The usual look of a cornered animal was gone, replaced by a predatory glint. Sarah? What are you doing here? She didn't invite me in, blocking the way with her thin frame. The smell of fried onions and expensive tobacco wafted from the depths of the apartment. The same tobacco Mark smoked when he was nervous. I brought you the money, you asked for it, I said, extending an envelope filled with cut-up newspaper strips. It was bait. Greed had always been her weakness. Her eyes darted to the envelope, her hand twitched. Come in, she grumbled, stepping back. In the hallway, on the coat rack, buried under a pile of cheap jackets, I spotted the edge of a beige cashmere scarf. The scarf I had given Mark last Christmas. We sat in the tiny kitchen, and I could physically feel the space shrinking. Chloe talked incessantly, complaining about her landlord, prices, her health, but her eyes were darting around. She was playing her role, the role of the victim I knew by heart. How's Mark? She asked suddenly, stirring sugar into her cup with too much casualness. The spoon clinked against the porcelain like a warning bell. Mark is worried about me, I said slowly, staring at the bridge of her nose. He says I'm losing my mind. That I need treatment. In a closed facility. Chloe froze for a second, then looked away. Well, maybe he's right. You have been acting strange lately, Sarah. Forgetting things, shouting for no reason. You need rest. She was speaking Mark's words. Using his intonations. It was so terrifying and so obvious that I wanted to laugh. They didn't just want the money. They wanted to erase me, turn me into a vegetable, lock me in a padded room so they could enjoy life on my dime. My own sister and my husband. Are you sleeping with him? The question flew out of me before I could think. The silence that hung over the kitchen was thick and ringing. Chloe slowly set down her cup. Her face changed, the mask of the unfortunate relative slipped off, revealing something malicious and triumphant. "Even if I am," she spat. "You always got everything, Sarah. The best grades, the best job, grandma's apartment. I got the leftovers. Mark never loved you. He tolerated you. You're boring, cold, always so proper. We were just waiting for the right moment." She stood up, feeling her superiority. "She thought I was broken. Get out, Sarah. And don't even think about making a scene. Mark already has the papers ready. The medical exam is just a formality. Your hysterics will only confirm the diagnosis." I stood up and walked out silently, feeling her triumphant gaze on my back. There was one thing she didn't know: I had turned on the voice recorder on my phone before I even entered the building. Back home, I operated like a robot. Fear vanished, replaced by an icy, crystalline clarity. I didn't have much time. Mark would be back in 3 hours. I pulled all the accumulated pills from under the mattress. There were so many, a whole handful of colorful capsules. I flushed them down the toilet, watching the water carry away my chemical leash. Then I got out a suitcase. Not to leave, but to set the stage. I started throwing things around, smashing dishes. I had to perform the spectacle they were expecting, but according to my own script. I shattered Mark's favorite vase, ripped a couple of my dresses. The apartment turned into a battlefield. Then I sat on the sofa in the middle of this chaos, opened my laptop, and transferred all the money from the savings account to an offshore account I had opened 5 years ago, before the wedding, just in case. Grandma always taught me, have a stash that no man knows about. Thank you, Grandma. When Mark walked in, he froze. The chaos in the perfectly sterile apartment shocked him more than if he had found a dead body. "What is going on here?" His voice was quiet, menacing. I looked up at him. I wasn't crying. I was smiling. "I know about Chloe, Mark. I know about the power of attorney. I know everything." He slowly closed the door and locked it. A predatory fluidity entered his movements. He didn't try to make excuses. He realized the game was up and dropped the mask of the caring husband. Now, standing before me was the enemy, calculating, cynical, dangerous. "And what are you going to do?" he sneered, stepping closer. "Look at yourself. You're hysterical. You've trashed the apartment. I'm calling the psychiatric emergency team right now. They'll come, see this mess, see your state. Chloe will confirm you attacked her today. You've lost, Sarah." He pulled out his phone. "Call them," I said calmly, not moving from my spot. "But listen to this first." I pressed play on my phone. Chloe's voice, loud and clear, filled the room. "Mark never loved you. We were just waiting for the right moment. The medical exam is just a formality." Mark's face turned gray. He froze with the phone in his hand. "That's not enough," he hissed. "Recording without consent is illegal. The court won't accept it." "Maybe," I agreed. "But I just sent it to your boss. And your partners at the firm. And the Bar Association's Ethics Committee. 5 minutes ago. Along with copies of your attempts to forge my signature on bank documents. You know reputation is everything. How long do you think it will take before you're disbarred and unemployable?" It was a gut punch. Mark staggered. His career, his status, his precious image, that was the only thing he truly loved. He rushed to his laptop, trying to cancel something, to check his email, but his hands were shaking. "You bitch," he exhaled, turning toward me. In his eyes, I saw a pure, undiluted desire to kill. He took a step toward me, fists clenching. In that moment, I was genuinely terrified, physically terrified, but I knew he was a coward. He was used to striking from the shadows, psychologically, using other people's hands. Direct violence didn't fit into his perfect world. "If you touch me," I said very quietly, "the video from the surveillance camera in the living room uploads to the cloud instantly." "Yes, I installed it a week ago." "Did you think you were the only one who could spy?" It was a lie. There was no camera. But he, a paranoid control freak, believed it. He froze, darting his eyes frantically around the corners of the room. "Get out," I said. "Right now. In the clothes on your back. Leave the keys on the table." He stood there, breathing heavily, his face blotchy and red. He was trying to find an exit, calculating options, but the computer in his head was returning an error. I had backed him into a corner using his own methods. He threw the keys on the floor with such force that they left a dent in the parquet. "You'll regret this, Sarah. You'll die alone, unwanted by anyone, with your cats and your paranoia," he spat, and walked out, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. I remained sitting on the sofa. The silence that followed his departure was different. It didn't press down on me. It was empty and clean. The following weeks passed in a fog, but it was a fog of activity, not depression. Divorce, lawyers, police. I filed fraud charges. Mark tried to fight back, but the audio recording and the testimony of the bank clerks did their job. He was fired. The scandal was quiet but devastating within his professional circles. Chloe crawled back to me a month later, crying, throwing herself at my feet, swearing he forced her, that she was afraid. I looked at her and felt nothing. No hatred, no pity. Just emptiness. I didn't take legal revenge on her, I simply erased her from my life. I blocked her everywhere, changed the locks, sold the apartment. That home was poisoned by their presence, their whispers, their plans. 8 months have passed. I live in another city, in a small studio overlooking the river. There is very little furniture, lots of light, and not a single unnecessary thing. I work remotely, doing translations. I've learned to trust my senses again. If I think food smells strange, I throw it away. If I don't like a person, I don't interact with them. I don't take pills anymore, except for vitamins I buy myself. Yesterday, I saw Mark's profile on social media from a fake account. His age, working as a legal consultant in some rinky-dink firm, posting quotes about betrayal and loneliness. Chloe lives with our mom in the village. And I? Today I bought myself new shoes. And I immediately threw the box into the dumpster. I don't keep anything anymore. Letters, notes, the past, it all burns very well, and the ash leaves no trace if you scatter it to the wind in time. Freedom doesn't smell like sandalwood and steel, it smells of river water and fresh coffee that I brewed just for myself.